October, November, whatever.
plan behind this. I was told that this new facility would address current needs, including needs for a larger conference rooms and more parking. If these needs exist, then I believe the right facility response should be justified separately and should fully consider the existing facility as a location for these. A follow-up with the town CFO arranged by the mayor highlighted two issues. One, that assumptions continue the debt payment as a baseline, the current debt payment as a baseline past 2022. I don't think that's what the community was told in the past. The bond payments were intended to end when the mortgage was paid off. The second assumption was that the tax caps in place would protect actually and prevent increasing the current taxes on the citizens by reallocating funds from other services.
Thanks, Dan. That's your 3 minutes.
Again, this doesn't sound fair to me. Sorry?
That's your 3 minutes. Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we've got Julia Schultz.
Good evening, Julia Schultz. I currently reside in Austin Oaks with my family while our home is being built on Hunt Club. I have some questions. Why should Eagle and Union Townships pay for a Worth Township branch that they will most likely not use? I'd rather pay the fee. It's a lot cheaper. Is there some reason that why Eagle and Union Townships have been included with Worth Township rather than Worth Township paying for this on their own? Has Worth Township been included in the payback of the existing bonds? Forgive me, I'm new here, so I may be getting information wrong, but I'm doing my best. Why weren't other options for funding explored? There seems to have been an assumption that the funding source would be bonds paid by Union, Eagle, Worth, and Perry Townships. From what I've been told, Whitestown has a rather large tax base, so why are other townships being asked to fund a Whitestown branch, or basically a Worth Township branch? Did Eagle and Union Townships vote on whether or not they want to pay for the Worth Township Library? If not, that amounts to taxation without representation, since this will actually be a new bond. Most people I've talked to so far trying to get information are unaware of these funding plans. And as the population grows, is the cost per household going to decrease? One of my problems is that this is a progressive tax, making it based on the value of property each individual owns. So the tax liability will vary widely and unfairly among taxpayers for the same level of service, should they choose to use that. So let's say that you have a nicer house than I have. Should you pay $5 for milk while I pay $2? It's not fair. When the current bonds were issued, Eagle and Union Township residents were most likely told their taxes would decrease by the debt service payment amount once the debt was paid off. I'm troubled by the comments indicating that no one will notice a change because the payback won't begin until the current bond is paid off, and the amount will remain the same. That's sort of like pushing this through under the cloak of darkness. It's not transparent, and I've learned over the years that if you need to sneak things through, then there's something rotten in Denmark. Okay, I'm showing my age with that one, but give me a break. So what happens in 5 to 10 years down the road? Should there be a need for improvements to the existing library in Zionsville? How will that be funded and who will pay for that? I have nothing against the library. I just don't support Eagle and Perry and Union Townships paying for that branch. The Zionsville branch is 5 to 7 minutes from my house. I have no need for another branch. I'm also concerned that additional townships are being included in order to pay for the what we want Taj Mahal instead of what we need library. After all, it's a lot easier to spend other people's money. Has the final size been determined, and if so, how was that determined? The decision to give Perry time to review and make their decision was wise. If possible, I'm hoping you'll give Eagle and Union Townships the same opportunity. If it's all or nothing, I would urge you to vote no on this proposed bond issue until you can come back to the table with a funding source that is paid for by Worth Township only, since they are the primary beneficiary of this.
Thanks, Julia. That's your 3 minutes. Appreciate you coming out. Next, we've got Katie Reesner.
Good evening. I'm Katie Reesner. I live at 190 North Maxwell Court in Zionsville. But in my day job, I am the Chief Development Officer for the Boys and Girls Club of Boone County. And we represent Whitestown, Zionsville, and Lebanon, have a club in each of those locations. Our west location serves Stonegate, Boone Meadow, and Z West. It is located on the west side of Zionsville. And we refer to it as our west or Whitestown location because of its proximity. What I've found in my 3 years at the Boys and Girls Club, as we have merged with all three clubs into one county, we need to think countywide and not townwide. And the Boys and Girls Club coming together as a county-based organization has helped us tremendously with our funding, with our collaboration. Our funders, such as United Way, the Community Foundation of Boone County, our individual donors, they want to give to a community and not and give back for collaboration and us working together. In the next 2 weeks, the Zionsville and Whitestown unit directors will be meeting with the new library director and discussing how we can collaborate on things like book clubs for the kids and robotics and STEM. So we're not duplicating our efforts, which is one thing our funders keep telling us is they want to make sure that we are serving the community, but not duplicating effort. So I would encourage you to think of this as a community countywide, good for the overall for all of our citizens and not an east side, west side of Zionsville and Boone County. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Katie. Next, we've got Sarah Billings.
Good evening, Sarah Billings, 7644 Bishop's Green in Zionsville. I'm in Stonegate, so I'm on the west side. I live on the west side. I had moved from the east side, the other side of Michigan Road. When I moved into Stonegate, there was like nothing there. Maybe 5 houses. There was nothing there. So you can see we've expanded. We're growing enormously. Now there's a lot there. So this is the next step. I'm obviously up here in support of the library. We build roads that have, connected lots of places now that have been built out there. We've added fire departments and police stations. We're building a new school that's right around the corner. This is the next step. And thank goodness, and I'm so grateful for the library that we have and the people of Zionsville that they put out questionnaire after questionnaire and talked to the citizens and asked them what they wanted. And this has been supported to the point that we can have a branch that's a community effort, which I completely support Katie's comments about that, a community effort of bringing that to where we're expanding. The growth is there. And thank goodness we have books now that will be there, that there's a humanities aspect that's supported. And please don't underestimate, I think, what this shows for our kids. I'm a single parent. I have 3 kids. I'm going back to school myself. I will use the library and so will my kids. But the fact that it's a partnership based, that's providing now space, opportunity, options for a whole new set of people that are out there. And we're limited with the space in Zionsville. I love our library. I love our current library, but it's limited. It's limited in space, right? There's not very many places we can go. So we do need more space. As a parent, Girl Scout troops, community meetings, we need the space and we could use it out there, and that's where it's growing. So I'm here obviously in support of the new library, and I'm super, super duper feel blessed and grateful that the people of Zionsville spoke on this issue already when the library exhaustively asked them what they wanted, and they put that forward, and that's what we're getting. And it's not the same library. We're getting new things, different things, options and opportunity. That's what I want for my kids. And that's what's being offered by the option to have a library that's a little more on the side of it. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Sarah. The last request to speak I have is Lucian Lupinski. Maybe it's Lucian. They'll tell me, I guess, in a second. Oh, I did get it right. I shouldn't. It was close enough.
Just my son and myself and my father. Yeah, Lucian Lupinski, 6201 South 950 East in Zionsville. Old people give history lessons, so I'm going to give you a little history lesson. We've been here for 30 years. When we moved in, the Hussey Mayfield Library was in a house by the Dairy Queen. Not optimal. Then in 95, they built the new library. There was a lot of angst about that at the time because there was the old varsity gym was there, and a lot of people were very sad that that was torn down. Then I think in 2004 it was expanded again. I won't swear to the 2004, but I think that's right. So that's 17 years ago, if my math is correct. And when we first were here, our first kids, everybody went to the same school. If there's anybody from Union here, I realize Union was its own thing. But aside from that, everybody went to Eagle, then everybody went to Pleasant View, everybody went to the middle school. It was just in a row. Point being, there's been dramatic growth here, a big surprise, right? Especially when you go west. I just drove up to Lebanon today, and it was just like everywhere you turn around, there's big earth-moving machines and all kinds of stuff. Tremendous growth, and the growth tends to be to the west. I'm a big library user. My kids were big library users. It seems to me that the current library cannot possibly be keeping up with the population, which has increased dramatically over the years that we've been here. And the growth appears to be, to me, almost exclusively to the west, maybe north a little bit, but mostly to the west. An additional library branch seems to be completely justified to me by the massive growth in this area. And I think I'm the only person who wasn't called out to leave early. So you got a minute back.
Thank you, Lucian. Appreciate that. That is it for requests to speak. Amy, is there any mayor administration update for us here tonight?
No, there is not.
There's not. Okay. We have no old business, and our only new business is what we were just talking about, is a consideration of a resolution approving the issuance of certain Hussey Mayfield Memorial Public Library District General Obligation Bonds and other related matters. This is resolution 2021-12. Someone from the library, Sarah, do you want to come up, or Molly, or yeah, Sarah, you want to come up? Very good. I've got a laundry list of folks here, so you get to be the first, I guess.
You probably don't need my address, but I'm at 914 Partridge Place in Zionsville. All right, so first of all, I wanted to thank you in allowing us to come back and speak to you again. I'm going to make this much abbreviated from the last time because we did give you a lot of information at your June meeting. But we are really excited to be here, and we're really excited about this project. And first, I want to do some introductions. My name is Sarah Moore, and I'm the Executive Director of the Hussey Mayfield Library. I've brought 3 board members with me tonight. I have Monty Cordy, Molly Hanlon, and Christina Hage. I also have our Director of Development for our Library Foundation, Tracy Phillips. We also have Virginia Hilbert, who is our Marketing Director. And we have Nick Franklin from Peters Municipal Consultants. She's our bond advisor. And then we also have Nick Weber, who is from Faegre, and they are our bond counsel. So I've got a whole team of people to answer any questions that you might have tonight. And I just wanted to go over a few highlights with you and make sure everybody is all on the same page about this. We are here to ask for the Zionsville Town Council to approve a bond of up to $9 million to build a branch location of the Hussey Mayfield Library. For no increase from the 2020 debt service tax rate, this will provide access to an additional location with increased capacity for all cardholders to provide needed services, programs, and spaces for our growing community now and into the future. Our library is well used and continues to see increases year after year. In 2019, we circulated an average of 21 items for every resident in Zionsville. So that's 21 items for every single resident, from babies to centenarians, checking out 21 items annually. And that is a huge, huge number. And of course, with those kind of numbers, we were 5th in the state per capita in borrowing in 2019. Our program attendance and offerings ranked 1st among state and national peers in a 2017 benchmarking study. We are serving a growing community. And as you know, the western portion of Zionsville has seen incredible growth over the past several years. In 2019, when we worked with the community to develop our current strategic plan, we identified a clear need for service in the western portion of our service area. And our ZCS school projections estimate that Boone Meadow Elementary, which is on the western side of the school district, the population is expected to grow by 5.8% each year. This location will be convenient and provide access to this growing population. This new branch location will be a benefit to all residents. It will provide more space for programs, including a larger meeting room that is available for public use outside of library operating hours. Currently, we have to pass on some speakers and programs that we would have wanted to bring to the community. And we often have to restrict attendance at library programs due to space restrictions. Ties to outdoor spaces and nature programming and activities will also be available at this new location. Currently, we have a limited ability to do this at our landlocked location. We found this to be the #1 most desired feature on all of the surveys that were mentioned earlier that we conducted in the community. And those surveys, by the way, went out to our entire service district. We had around 300 people from Eagle, Union, and Perry Township that took that survey. And again, that #1 most desired feature was outdoor space and access to outdoor spaces and programming. So throughout this process, we've worked hard to understand the community needs and wants while remaining cognizant of taxpayer impacts. We've worked with the mayor and town council to mitigate any changes to current Eagle and Union taxpayers, while still being able to build a branch location that meets the needs and wants of our growing community with an eye toward the future. So now I just want to say again, thank you for allowing me to come here and talk to you. And I have a whole team ready to answer any questions that you have.
Very good. Thank you, Sarah. Counselors, questions you may have for Sarah or the board or the rest of the team?
So there were obviously some speakers ahead of you that expressed some concerns and actually several questions. I don't know if you took note of them and can address some of those questions as far as, you know, why is the library in Whitestown? Why, you know, there were a number of things. I don't know if you remembered all those questions. I didn't write them down. I'm sorry.
There were a lot of questions. I thought I was going to just remember them all, and then there were a lot. So I don't have them all, but I can do my best. So why is the library in Whitestown? Well, Worth Township is a part of our service district, and we are looking at where all the growth is happening. I have a map that I gave to you last time, but I could actually pull up as well. It kind of shows you all the growth that's on the western side of our service district. And this is a very convenient location for all that growth out in that direction. And so this location was chosen because it adds that convenient access. It's very walkable, bikeable, and it has that outdoor space that we talked about. We have trails on site as well as woods that will be able to do a lot of nature programming. It's a location that was also offered to us from the Whitestown Town Council at 11 acres, and that has had a huge impact on what we're able to do with this location. Let me see.
So the land was free.
Yes, the land is
I just
free.
want to make sure everybody.
And I
Yeah.
think one of the things that's confusing for people, because you touched on it, but if you could expand on it, what is a library service district? Because I think that's what's confusing for a lot of people, as this is supposed to be Zionsville, that's supposed to be Whitestown. Perry Township doesn't want to be included. So we've been presented to and received a lot of emails, and we've looked into it. So we kind of understand, but I think it'd be helpful for the public to understand exactly how these delineations happen.
Okay. All right. Yeah, it is. There's all these different taxing districts and areas. So our library service district has been made up of Eagle and Union tax districts for quite some time, which actually isn't all of Zionsville, as you know. Because we haven't had Perry Township in our service district. And we last year were able to add Worth Township into our service district, which helped us with a lot of the, we're trying to provide a continuity of service. We already served part of Whitestown in our service district, that whole area where Meyer is and everything was already a part of our service district. And then we were able to expand to all of Whitestown by adding Worth Township to add that continuity of service. And we had brought forward an idea of, if this is what the town council wanted, and that's what Perry Township wanted, was to add Perry Township, but that's being put off for a later date, and I understand that. But it's something we made available because it was important to us to serve the unserved areas of our service district and to provide a continuity of service. And we actually were finding that of the Worth Township residents that were purchasing cards are allowed to purchase cards in Boone County at other libraries. 3-to-1, they were purchasing library cards within our library because that was the preferred library that these residents were looking for. So it was just a good fit for us to be able to expand in that direction.
Well, I think one of the questions that was asked tonight is why are Eagle and Union paying for this? Why is this not coming out of Worth and Perry?
Well, it is coming out of Worth because this is the entire library district is paying for this library location. And the entire library district will have access to this library. So it's not like we're putting a library, like I think there was that house analogy. We're not building a house for our neighbors. We're building another house that other people will have access to because our house is too small. This is not a library that's just going to be for Whitestown. This is a library that I feel a lot of people in the western portion of Eagle Township are going to find much more convenient. Personally, I live pretty close to the western portion of Eagle, and this location would be my preferred location. I'm going to have to keep going to the main location because it is where my office is. But if I were a resident, I would find this location on the western side to be much more convenient. So everyone in the service district is paying for a new location that will offer more services and more capacity for programs and benefit the entire community.
So Worth will also be paying into the bond for.
Yes, absolutely.
Because I think that's not clear to some people from the emails that I've gotten.
Yes.
That a lot of people believe that Eagle and Union are the only ones that are going to be paying into this bond. And I want to just make it clear to everybody that this is beyond just Eagle and Union.
Yes, the entire service district will be paying for this equally.
Molly, one of the questions that was asked was about funding alternatives. If the bond was the only option considered, I've had conversations with different folks on the board about even location. Was this the only location considered? Can we talk a little bit about what other funding alternatives were you guys considered on the library board, and also what alternate locations may have been explored?
Okay, and for that, I would like Monty and Molly, maybe you can come up and talk a little bit about what we explored.
Thanks, everyone. So, well, Molly was actually heading the site selection, so I'll talk about funding first. So we did think about alternative sources of funding. The challenge being is once the decision was made and the community sort of spoke, and real quick note, this actually stretches back to a strategic plan, which is probably 5 years old at this point, which was at the time our existing service district, which was Eagle and Union. But if you go back to that strategic plan and then following on the subsequent strategic plan was all about expansion of services and expansion of coverage and more convenience of coverage. So everything we're doing here has a sort of, I'll call it a long history of our strategic plan. Once we got to the point where we felt like we could do something with the expansion of the branch, there really only seemed to be one good alternative, which was the bond issuance. The bond allows us to sort of call it smooth out the cost of ownership. One of the alternatives would have been to rent space. If we use the homeowner analogy again, the site that we're looking to build is going to be, call it a monumental building. It's not a Taj Mahal by any stretch, but it's going to be a building that's going to be there for decades. And the problem with renting is, as you know, is someone's making a profit on that. And if you're paying rent forever, you're going to pay for the same facility time and time again. So we did explore that. We did also talk to some people about co-location with some other governmental services. And the timeline for those was just exceedingly long. And the plans were too nebulous for us to get any sort of commitment on. And as a matter of fact, we had some initial conversations that would have put itself like 3 years. So we did explore several different alternatives from that perspective, financing. We talk about the site selection.
Yes. We worked with Tammy Kelly of Remax Commercial beginning late last year. And we looked at a number of locations. As we discussed, the new branch has to be in Worth Township proper as approved by the Worth Township trustees. We looked at opportunities near where this branch is planned at the corner of Main Street and Albert S. White. There's some other adjacencies, some other lots right there across the street. I think some of the dynamics have changed since we last looked at the price of that acreage, but we were looking at $125,000 per acre right there. We looked into the legacy core in Old Whitestown, convenient for a certain population there. Again, it would be a really small branch, no parking, limited, a little bit there. We looked way further north at some agricultural acreage where some landowners were willing to parcel off a part of their property. But again, just not a convenient location. We heard from a lot of Eagle Township residents that, even people with kids in the village who are headed over to Z West and doing their dining and purchasing out at Lowe's and Meyer to scoot up Main Street and hit this branch for pickups and drop-offs and programming would be really convenient. So this busy intersection worked out well. We also did talk with Dr. Robinson and the school district about some land that the schools own just west of ZYSA, of the soccer fields. And that's right on the line. It would have been a great opportunity, but it's not in Worth Township.
I've got a couple questions. Thanks. Obviously, we had initially thought maybe that Perry would be included in this, and it sounds like it's not going to be at this point. Maybe in the future they could be added, but at that point they would not be part of the bond. Is that correct?
There's because of Zionsville uniqueness in terms of how the what's it called, the merger occurred. Yeah, the DLGF actually dictates who can be levied for the bond and when. We have had conversations with them, and they haven't given us any sort of final determination. They said it's very black and white that if Perry expansion occurs prior to the bond being approved, that they are definitively leviable, call it. They said what was gray was whether or not the levy could occur if the expansion occurred prior to the bond being issued. So there's this gray area, and again, through conversation with the DLGF, we think that if Perry did want the service, and if you guys wanted to vote for them to have the service, that we could talk with the DLGF and have Perry included on the levy. It's worth noting that I think that everyone wants people who are getting the benefit from the service to pay for it. In terms of the impact on the Eagle Union and Worth townships for having Perry included, the Perry tax base is very, very small compared to Eagle Union and Worth combined, and the impact on the Eagle Union and Worth township residents would be very small. I don't know if Nikki can speak to that. But
I want to dig into that for a sec, because I know part of the rationale, and you guys gave some great presentation materials last time, which I reoriented myself to this weekend. There were some dollars in here, and you did break that out because this was kind of the rationale for adding Perry. So it kind of talked about their tax base and then what it would be if they weren't in it. And it was, I forget the total number, but it was a few $100 million. On the projections, though, that we've been using or seeing, like, for example, a $400,000 assessed home would pay something like $36 a year, which is already included in the current bond. It would just continue over. I don't know if those numbers are correct, but was that baked in with those Perry numbers overall, or will we have to see some slight change for Eagle and Union if Perry isn't in?
right.
Did the numbers get run? In other words, were they run with or without?
They were run without, but I'll have our financial.
Yeah, they were run without. We ran a set with Perry and without, but the numbers you have are without Perry. They're just Eagle Union and work together.
Okay, cool. And can you clarify then, like, say on the basic assessment valuation, so like on $100,000 of assessed value, what would be the annual cost, or however you want to do it? I know we keep going 400,000 because that seems to be like a median price.
Yeah, I have 200,000 in front of me. So 385 is about the median household in Zionsville. So for that amount, it's $34 and change. If you go down, say 200,000, it's $15 and $54.
Per year.
Per year, yes, annually. And they're currently paying so that $200,000 house is currently paying $14.96. So it's a change of 58 cents a year.
Is there a different tax rate by township based on, say, like Worth was a lot more commercial assessed value, or commercial? Is that just baked into the overall price? And so all commercial within the library district is assessed that way? Or does it get broken out by township based on commercial, ag versus residential?
So it's based on assessed value. So the library has assessed value. It's broken out, right? 3%, 2%, 1%, but everybody's going to get the same rate. Obviously, 3% doesn't have any of the homestead exemptions or any of that. So they're going to pay more. But does that help? I don't know. Does that answer your question? So it's all together.
There's no difference in breaking that out by
No.
Right.
township.
Yeah. The only difference would be she was talking about the circuit breaker there. I think you guys probably know.
Yeah.
So everyone is going to pay the exact same flat rate. So if you have a house and the houses have the same assessed value, whether you're an Eagle or a Union or in Worth, and if your homestead exemptions were the same, and your mortgage exemption were the same, you'd be paying the exact same tax.
Go ahead. What are you going to add?
I feel weird stepping in with my two finance people, but in regular people terms, commercial properties are assessed at a higher amount, where the tax cap for if you live in your home and it's a certain, small acreage is 1%, but for commercial, it's 3%. So that does make a difference in how much they're assessed overall.
Is it also, what is it for agricultural? Is it 2% or 3%?
2%.
Just because I've asked this and I've had a couple different answers. So obviously this body is before this issue, before this body, we can vote on this. Are we speaking for people in Worth, or was there some other, I know they voted to donate the land and the township board wants the library, but if we say yes, do folks in Whitestown, are they part of this bond, or is there some other body of their representatives who have to also pass this?
No, actually, you are our official fiscal body. So basically, this is the final say. So Worth Township, the Worth Township Advisory Board, they voted to join our service district last year in August. So they're a part of our service district. But because our board is made up of appointed individuals, we have to have a fiscal body that we go to for things that involve taxes. And you are our designated fiscal body to approve this bond. And that's because over 50% of our net assessed value lies in the town of Zionsville.
So
Worth noting though is that Worth Township trustees did essentially have the numbers on what the increase in taxes would be stemming from this. And so they did essentially de facto approve that the taxes would be increasing on behalf of the residents there.
Yes, they are in favor of all of this.
So before August of last year, a resident in Worth could not use the library in downtown Zionsville.
They could only if they paid a fee that
Yeah,
is set by the state statute.
Yeah.
My final question, and I'm a huge supporter and user of the library. I've got 4 kids. Like I said, we're old school users, so we're there checking out books and probably using it the way I did, kind of a generation or 2 ago. But I have been thinking about the future of libraries. I read about 8 articles over the weekend. Most of them were from progressive sources. Just of what's the future of brick and mortar libraries moving forward, not only post-COVID, but just in an ever-changing world. I was telling Jason that 20 years ago, I didn't even own a cell phone. And now, every kid under the age of 9 has access to a tablet. So, and I know obviously, universities are changing their library systems. Bookstores are obviously struggling. So people are moving to more electronic mediums. Just thinking about this bond, it's a 15-year bond, right? Or is it a 20-year bond?
We are going to adjust that between 15 and 20 years, whatever we need to do to make sure that that tax rate stays flat from the 2020 rate.
So I'm just thinking in 2041 or in 2031, on a 20,000 square foot building, are we wisely investing $9 million in a library system, which I would support Zionsville having a state-of-the-art library system? I'm cautious to tie up $9 million in so much brick and mortar when every business in Indiana and around the world is reconsidering, myself including in my own work, downsizing office space, closing office space, moving to virtual work. So I just don't want to get caught that we're building for 2021, 2025 and not thinking 10, 20 years down the road. So just, and I know we've talked about this, but I don't know that the public has fully grasped what use they would see or what value and ROI they're going to get because they're paying for this. And they're thinking, I'm not going to use the library in that capacity. And they may not be thinking, I don't know what books will look like in the library is much more than books, but just talking about the vision of a repurposed space, because I'm reading a lot about what those look like. Most of them are repurposing library space as opposed to building new library space. And I know part of that's because we got a pretty small footprint in a tight geographic spot that you can't expand on, but it would be helpful, I think, for folks to hear the answer to that question.
Yeah. And I think that you'll find that Indianapolis actually did recently build a new branch, and I think they have more on the way. So it's about serving residents where they are. And I think what you're going to find is that the library looks entirely different from when you went as a kid. It looks different from when I went as a kid. It's going to keep looking different. And what I think libraries have done a fantastic job of is being able to respond to the growing needs of our communities. And I think that really the vision of a library now is not this, storehouse of books that people come in and they want their knowledge and then they walk away. We're more of a community center now. We work to provide experiences, educational activities, learning, connection. I think connection is a large part of what we do now too. That's become something that we really identified in our strategic plan. And that's connection, not just, between someone and knowledge, but it's also connection between each other, connection between ideas. I think that when I talked about our program statistics that showed that we were first really in the state and nationwide in peer libraries of our programs, it shows that they are very popular. And we are always looking for new partnerships and new ways to serve our community. I mean, partnerships last year included that we brought the bookmobile, we brought the bloodmobile in. We have worked to be a voting location, and we are constantly trying to find ways, like with the Boys and Girls Club, that we can use our resources together to provide the kinds of services that our community needs. And that's why we do our strategic plans every 3 years to find out what is it. We don't want to just be this, here's what a library is, let's just set it down and you can come and use it if you want. What our vision for the library is that we are dynamic and that we are really working to find out what it is our community needs and wants and how we can help provide that. And I think that if you look at the library as a whole, in generally just broader terms, we are always trying to innovate and provide connections. And I think that is going to be true now and into the future. And I often like to say this about ebooks. It's maybe a lesser point right now, but you saw ebooks going up and up and up. And then at a point, they just kind of stopped. And right now, physical book readership, because I don't want to just, get rid of all the books. We just had Lucian come up and talk about how many books he checks out. And you talked about books, and I have an e-reader. I rarely use it. I use physical books most of the time. It's not like they've gone away. And I think there's a point where you're going to need both of those things. And I think we do a good job of trying to take advantage of all of the opportunities that are out there now. We have lots of electronic resources and lots of things that bring people into the building. And I think this new building allowing for that meeting space and the access and connection to nature. I think all of those things are us looking toward the future and seeing what we can provide and what needs we can meet.
We're gonna have that quiet workspace you made when we're all working from home.
Right. I mean, I love the idea that there's a lot of community center language built into this. And as I've talked to a lot of people over 2 years of being on this council, one thing that I think that folks have articulated we need is a stronger community. We don't really have a strong community center. And I think this can absorb some of that, albeit a little further, west than right here in town. I don't know if there's room here to do that anyway. But I think that that's part and parcel to some of the programming. I don't know if the library wants to absorb all that. And if we would come back to ever consider having a community center in Zionsville if this were there, because in some essence, it's serving some of those same purposes I hear people talking about, if that makes sense.
It does. I think that, I think this is already something we're doing. I don't think it's going to be something that we are newly going to do. We're just going to have the ability to do even more of that and help people build those connections even stronger. It's really interesting in our strategic planning process, how many people said that they were looking for a connection to others in the community. That there just aren't, we're losing our clubs and we're losing our organizations. There just aren't as much, there's not as much of that now. People aren't joining as many things as they did in the past. And part of what I think we do as a library is we help bring people together and develop those connections with shared interests and ideas.
So I am very excited about this opportunity that's coming forward. In 2010, when the last census was done, the population of Zionsville was a little over 14,000. The 2020 census put us at a little over 29,000. So we've grown by more than 100%. And you've added Worth Township to this, which has exploded in their own right. I'm not just excited about the possibility of having another branch to increase the amount of things that you do currently. I'm excited about what additional opportunities that you're going to be able to offer there. Because in the end, my kids are still 13 and 11. They'll be using libraries for several more years before they lose interest in their parents and go on and do other things. But in the end, we will likely be using the benefits of this new library and driving from the east part all the way to the west part because of the additional things, not just duplicative items, but the additional things. So I'm very supportive of this. I'm very excited about this, and I know the price tag is high, but we've grown by so much. I think this is a necessary next step for us. It's hard, to your point, Councilor Berg, it's hard to predict what our needs will be in 15, 20 years. I mean, this thing is Star Trek 20 years ago, and now we're doing pretty much everything on it. So who knows what we'll have further down the line, but very excited about what you've done as far as surveying the residents and their needs and just kind of building a new purpose of the library for the future. So thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask just, Alex mentioned the price tag, right? So we're talking $9 million. My question, and this was alluded to earlier, and I think I know the answer to some of these, but as the assessed value goes up, what happens to, the expense essentially to the households? What happens if the old library needs renovations? And then frankly, I'd like to know if we explored Plan B, like if it's not 9, could it be 6? Could it be 7.5? Like what are the ranges there?
Okay. All right. So first you asked about basically what happens as there is growth. So as the net assessed value, which is all the value in our service district, as that grows, the tax rate goes down because it just spreads out that cost among more and more people. It makes that denominator larger. So then that makes that full tax rate smaller. Mm-hmm. So as growth continues, as it is very likely to do, that tax rate will go down. And as far as if we need renovations in the future, that's something that, we'll explore as we go. But I believe that we have been trying to be as fiscally responsible as possible as we've moved along. And we try to always keep a decent amount of reserves so that if we have an issue with our building, we can address it when that comes up. And that's how I believe we will continue to move forward. And then as far as exploring these other options at lower bond amount, I think I wanted to first start by saying that when we first brought this up, we were not sure the entire amount, but we're trying to keep everybody involved that we were going to need. But then we've done all these surveys that we've talked about and worked with the community and really set up a building that we feel meets the needs of the residents, those express needs, what people want, what they need. And we are trying to build a library that we're not trying to go for broke here. We're trying to make a building that we think meets those needs. And we're getting closer and closer to that. So we have a pretty good idea of what that's going to cost now. And that's that up to $9 million bond that we're looking at. But we did, some people have asked us this question. So we ran some numbers. Nikki did that for me to kind of feel out what that difference would be. And so just for 7 million, for example, for a $7 million bond instead of a $9 million bond, that is going to save the average Zionsville homeowner $6.76 annually. And that average homeowner is somebody who owns a $385,000 home. So somebody with a $385,000 home is going to save $6.76 annually. That's about $135,000 or $135 over 20 years. So it's a really minimal amount of money, I feel like, in terms of impact. But what that does to our building is it reduces our building down from a 23,000 square foot building to a 16,000 square foot building. And to put that another way, that would be less than 1/3 or 1 floor of our current library building, and would really reduce the spaces that we have available to make the library the kind of community center that our served area is looking for.
Would you be able to stay within 9 million now with the price of lumber?
We have been running these numbers continuously, and that is part of the reason that it is where it is that we've been taking into account those rising lumber costs. And so
Lumber's trading down though. I mean, it was down like $700 today. I mean, that's down from, I think it was 1,600 a few months ago. I mean,
Yeah.
it's down.
yeah. Yep, we've been following that and adjusting as we need.
Yeah.
Sarah, one thing we've heard is, maybe the community didn't get a full view of all this, or they don't quite understand it. And even Alex pointed out, like, we just have questions, but I appreciated like an hour you took with me to kind of walk me through all this. And I know people want to feel heard, and I know maybe folks in Perry didn't feel heard recently. Talk to me about, I know you talked about the polling and we've listened to people. How have people been heard? And do you feel like maybe some people haven't been heard?
I think we've been doing so much to try to hear our community. We've done surveys, we've done multiple surveys of the community, and we really wanted to reach out to people. So we put yard signs throughout the community with a QR code. Hopefully some of you saw those. They were up for I think over a month when we did this to advertise the survey. We also advertised on social media and I believe that would have gone into the paper as well. We've had at least half a dozen articles in local publications, from the Lebanon Reporter to Zionsville Monthly and the Current, have all covered that we are looking at building this location. We have had a page up on our website with Q&A and lots of other documentation for over a year now. And we have been out going to events. We go to farmers markets and we go to pretty much any event that will have us. It's been kind of limited because of COVID. And I think that's maybe what some people are really reflecting on, is that we haven't been able to have a lot of huge gatherings to go over all of this, but direct mailers. We did direct mailers about the survey as well. So we've really been trying to do what we can to reach people and let them know what we're doing.
Yeah, I appreciate that approach. I thought maybe it was selected people, or maybe your current members or people who are frequent users. Sounds like, you were advertising it in different places where it was open to anybody who would have come across seeing it on social media or signs or whatever, as opposed to just, we did a poll, we surveyed X number of people based on a finite grouping, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, we advertised it to everybody. In fact, we actually had one person, which is very little difference in the results, but we had one person from Pike Township that took it. So really, it was out there.
Yeah. Thank you.
I think most of my questions were answered. I did get a couple of questions that came in today. Why not expand the current library?
Well, I think, I've discussed this earlier, and the benefits of this new building. I think we're kind of limited, first of all, in what we can do with our current building. We're landlocked. We're not going to get that connection to nature, that number one thing that people wanted, the ability to have outdoor activities. We've been feeling that for years. That has been such a big issue for us, because that's something that a lot of people want. And then it provides those connections that we just can't do in our current location. Like I said, our meeting room is limited. I don't know that you're going to be able to do a lot about that because our space, what are we going to, I mean, we're already at 3 floors. So I'm not sure that we're going to go up. And renovation means we're going to be cutting some things out. And I think that we are really well used right now and we're kind of stretched to the brim. And as we've talked about, all that growth coming into the western portion of our service district really to us made sense that that's where we're going to look to expand. Yeah, our parking lot is full a lot. I've had to park on a street and walk over sometimes to go to work. So
One person asked me, Carmel has 2 libraries for 100,000 people. There's an ask for a second one for 40,000 people. When the library board and leadership is thinking through this type of ask, how much of it is based on today and how much of it is based on tomorrow and the day after tomorrow and down the line?
Right. We've talked and thought about that a lot. I'll tell you that we think that if this branch were open today, it would be fully utilized. I'm actually more concerned about it being enough for, say, 20 years into the future. So, but we have, we lived here a long time and we've seen the growth that's occurring. We got the growth numbers from the school system, which I know all you guys have heard about when talking about where new schools need to go up. And we think that we're getting in early enough that we're not too late to be serving some of this explosion. But we're sort of going to have this open right on time to meet this next explosion. If you just drive around out on the west side, you guys, I think, have to approve them. So all the subdivisions that are going there. So again, this goes back to the strategic plan, people looking for expanded services, ease of accessibility, the community aspect to it. And we have thought through what's likely to happen in the community and the growth of it. And both in terms of the site selection, but also the existence of a branch in terms of making this move and making this happen.
This probably isn't a fair question considering COVID, but when Worth joined last August, how many card-bearing members were added since then from Worth? Card holding, not bearing.
Virginia, can you come up for a minute? They like you.
We have plenty of room up here if anybody else wants to come up.
Yeah.
My name's Virginia Hilbert. I'm the marketing director, and we've added about 550 cardholders right now.
Wow, since August for Worth
From
only?
Worth, yes, just Worth.
Virginia and her department have done a fantastic job being present in a lot of events.
That is amazing during COVID when nobody's going anywhere.
Across the board, yeah.
What do they use? Are they using like online resources from you guys? Like what are they? What's caused that growth?
Yeah. But we are starting to see numbers inside the building going back to normal. Actually, come to the library on a Monday, and I think it's about the afternoon when all the kids are there picking up their summer reading prizes and the like, and you'll see it's just packed. So it's and I think we gave away around 2,000 cards total last year during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And that was when we were closed for a portion of it and we had limited hours and people used the online resources, and we've done curbside pickup throughout this time if people can't come in. And we've done virtual programming. In fact, most of our programming is either virtual, but actually all of it is either virtual or it's outdoor programming. So we're trying to provide a lot of opportunities. We've really tried to step up during COVID and find different ways to continue to serve our community and meet the needs of our community. I think we'd all thought about starting to incorporate more virtual programming into our services leading into 2020, but this kind of threw us all into new ways of working and new ways of providing services to our community. And it has, really just gone phenomenally. We had, I think, right around 24,000 hits on our programming during 2020. So it was online programming, and that, people were using that. And we actually expanded our online collection during that time to include things like online tutoring services so that kids, everybody was having a lot of trouble, meeting the demands of having to do schoolwork from home, and parents having to provide more help to their kids through this process. And we thought, well, this is something we can do. Let's start adding this service. And we added a lot more in terms of just our digital products that were available to try to meet those needs.
I mean, I think from my perspective, that's my district, right? I mean, that's the folks out west of town that utilizes the library and would utilize this. I mean, I think the correspondence I've received is from my district about 7-1 in favor of it. So, I mean, I think I certainly look forward to, my folks in my area being able to utilize it, assuming it goes through.
Any other questions, counselors?
I just have a small comment. First, I want to thank all of the library board members. I don't know if anybody knows this, but they're all volunteers, and I think that's awesome. And I think you guys have a hard job pushing this agenda, and I think I understand it can be fulfilling and thankless at the same time. And I appreciate that, and I can understand it. So, regarding the Perry Township expansion that was removed off of this docket, at the last town council meeting, you guys expressed to us that you had a survey which, admitted it surveyed about 30 residents of Perry Township. I just want to be clear that as of 2018, I don't have the current number, but there's, 1,292 residents in Perry, and that equates to about 2.5% of Perry Township residents surveyed for that. So I think that's just important to understand. As we move into the other survey that you taught, the same survey, which was about 300 people, is that correct?
It was about 500 people, but about 300 were from Eagle, Union, and Perry.
So 500 people, and we have, I think, the president mentioned between Worth and the rest of Zionsville, 40,000 people. How many of those are users is my question. How many users do you have in total is my brief question. Or how many cards have you issued?
I think it's about, like I said, we issued 2,000 last year. And one thing to note about our cards are that
families or
yeah, it's what I can say is that our cards generally expire after 2 years because it's just the state law. And then people have to come in and renew them. So at different times, I think we reach different people. And one of our big policies that we really started during the pandemic and the board has voted to continue is that we have gone fine free. And so that doesn't mean that if people lose an item or keep an item, they still have to pay to replace that. But if they're a few days late, maybe their kids have items out and they're a few days late, they don't get charged, this much per item that's out. And that has actually led to a lot more people, as they're finding out about this, are getting cards for everybody in their household, and kids are getting cards. So a lot of times we had parents come in that said, I don't want to get cards for my kids because they're just going to check out a bunch of stuff and lose them, and it's not going to get back in time, and it's hard for me to keep track of all that. So I think we're continuing to grow. And the last thing I heard was maybe about 15,000 card holders. I'm sorry I didn't bring that tonight, but
that's great. That's great information. I just wanted to kind of touch on that. I'm saddened a little bit because I feel like this would have been a slam dunk to include Perry, but my district is really unique. I think everybody should understand that my district includes 2 different areas, Eagle and Perry. And it's my responsibility to represent everybody, whether it's Eagle or Perry. And much like Jason Plunkett, Vice President Plunkett, excuse me, I can tell you that a lot of my Eagle residents are going to be for this. They're going to utilize it. And I just understand that Perry also has a different dynamic with regards to their location and what they do every day for a living and how much land they own. And there's just so many different things that I just think we need to consider those things as we move forward. And I hope in the future that there is an opportunity to revisit this possibility to bring library service to Perry. But I would ask that, I'd be willing to be a part of this, that we can try and reach out to Perry, have more communication with Perry in the future. So that's all I have for tonight with regards to that. But if you have a comment.
Molly and I were fighting over who got to respond to that. So come on up, we'll do it together.
Please,
maybe.
yeah.
But I can tell you this, like you said, we're volunteers, and if you want to look up how to expand your library service district or how to get a bond done, there's no to-do book. We're sort of figuring this out. And we thought that the way to expand service to a district was go to the people who spoke for them and said, hey, here's a service. Do they want it? We can offer it. And what we found is that we really needed to take it to them. more so in a fashion than we were doing with gathering information about the branch expansion. So I think we'd be excited to offer the service, and I think you can have our commitment that we can get back into the process very quickly, something more like what we heard last Tuesday that the people from Perry would appreciate, which is more of that, which we can do now post-COVID, of more of the in-person, what does it mean, what do we get, et cetera. So.
And I was just going to mention at last Thursday's meeting, we were asked about why more Perry residents weren't contacted and able to respond to the survey and why signs weren't out in the township. And I didn't realize, and I wasn't able to respond, that we can't. The state library says that we can't solicit a potential library district. We can't put signs up. So when Perry is ready, we would love to continue a discussion.
Thank
Get
you.
everyone involved and be present and provide any information that we can.
I do appreciate your attendance on such short notice, like I had as well. So
Same day service, right?
yeah, no, yeah.
Hey, just one question on the survey or the input. Was it really about what would you like to see, or did it specifically say, would you be in favor of a new branch? Was the survey about a new branch, or was it more about amenities?
It was mostly about the new branch, but what we're drawing from when we were talking about this is it included things like, would you use the new branch? How likely would you be to use the new branch? And would you, which location would you use most often? So we were trying to get at whether they would use this new branch. And so that's really what we've been sharing with you, is that survey was aimed at finding out what people wanted in this new location, but we were able to then provide that data that said that 70% of the people from Eagle, Union, and Perry Township that took the survey said they would use the new location.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I think it's important, and I can't find everything on all the data you gave us, but there was some pretty significant data that people in Eagle and Union would use the new branch, or certainly use both branches. In all, I think it was 40% said both.
Yeah, and I think, we had talked to the Indianapolis Public Library, some officials from Indianapolis Public Library, about when we started this whole process, about how it works with their branches, and do people just have one branch and that's where they go? And they actually found that people generally use multiple branches, that they don't really have this one place that they go, that they move around depending on what they want and what resources are available at what branch. And we expect to see that too.
This was touched on just briefly. Regardless of the vote, though, I would like to thank our friends in Whitestown for donating the land so that this bond is either $1 million less, or we can put $1 million more towards the building. That was very generous of them. So thank you to them. Councilors, any other questions? Any motions on this topic anyone like to make? I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Second, Vice President Plunkett. Amy, you'll do a roll call vote on this, please.
Sure. President Garrett,
Yes.
Vice President Plunkett,
Yes.
Counselor Burke,
No.
Counselor Choi,
Yes.
Counselor Culp,
Yes.
Counselor Melton.
Yes.
Very good. Resolution 2021-12 passes with a vote of 5 in favor, 1 opposed. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate that.
Thank you. Thank you for all your time.
Councilors, any other matters you'd like to bring up today? If not, we've got approval of claims. Any questions on claims that were submitted? Any motion on claims?
Make a motion to approve claims.
Second.
Got a first from Vice President Plunkett, second from Councilor Melton. All in favor? Aye. All opposed? Claims are approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Heard Councilor Culp first. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion to adjourn is approved by a vote of 6 in favor, 0 opposed. Next regular town council meeting is scheduled for Monday, July 19th, 2021 at 7:30 a.m. in the town council chambers and via Zoom. Final notice will be posted in compliance with Indiana open door law. Thank you, everyone.